Hi kindergartners! Today I'm going to read you one of my favorite stories. I love all of his stories. It's called Pete the Cat and His 4 Groovy Buttons. Art is by James Dean, creator of Pete the Cat, and the story is by Eric Littman. So today as we read, we're going to take a close look at the key details or important parts, and this is going to help us to be able to tell about the story in our own words. So now before we start, there are a few words in the story that you might not be familiar with that I wanted to go over with you. And the first word is round. And something that is round is something shaped like a circle, so it can roll. The next word is simply. And simply means obviously or clearly. I simply did not mean to hurt your feelings. That would be an example of how to use the word simply in a sentence. Pete the Cat and His 4 Groovy Buttons. Pete the Cat put on his favorite shirt with 4 big, round, colorful, groovy buttons. He loved his buttons so much, he sang this song. My buttons, my 4 groovy buttons. My buttons, my 4 groovy buttons. So now, if I'm thinking about the important parts of the story so far at the beginning, I know that Pete put on his favorite shirt, and his shirt had 4 big, round, colorful buttons. Pop! Oh no! One of the buttons popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 3. 4 minus 1 equals 3. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He sang groovy. He kept on singing his song. My buttons, my 3 groovy buttons. My buttons, my 3 groovy buttons. Pop! Oh no, another button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 2. 3 minus 1 equals 2. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My buttons, my 2 groovy buttons. My buttons, my 2 groovy buttons. Pop! Oh no, another button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 1. 2 minus 1 equals 1. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. He kept on singing his song. My button, my 1 groovy button. My button, my 1 groovy button. So now I'm wondering if you can think about the middle of the story and tell me what keeps happening to Pete's buttons. Pop! Oh no, the last button popped off and rolled away. How many buttons are left? 0. 1 minus 1 equals 0. Did Pete cry? Goodness, no. Buttons come and buttons go. Pete looked down at his buttonless shirt, and what do you think he saw? His belly button, and he kept on singing this song. So now I'm wondering, what could Pete see once all of his buttons popped off his shirt? And he's saying, it's all good. My button, still have my belly button. My button, still have my belly button. I guess it simply goes to show that stuff will come and stuff will go. But do we cry? Goodness, no. We keep on singing. And now I'm wondering, how did Pete feel about losing all those buttons on his favorite shirt at the end of the story? Buttons come and buttons go. So today we paid attention to those key details, or the important parts at the beginning, the middle, and the end of the story. And this helped us to be able to retell the story, or tell the story in our own words. And you can do this anytime you read a fiction story. You can go back after you read and tell someone about the story.